Welcome to another episode of History of the Popes. Today, we're unpacking the life and legacy of one of the most pivotal figures in the history of the papacy, Pope Gregory I, who served as Pope from 590 to 604. His pontificate marks a turning point, not only for the Church, but for Western civilization itself. Gregory's contributions as a pastor, administrator, and thinker resonate through the centuries, earning him the title the Great, a rare honor bestowed on only a handful of popes. Let's explore his story, his world, and the enduring impact of his leadership. Imagine Rome in the late 6th century. The once mighty eternal city is a shadow of its former glory. The Western Roman Empire has collapsed. Barbarian invasions have reshaped the landscape, and Rome itself is battered by floods, plague, and political instability. The population has dwindled, aqueducts lie in ruins, and the city's grand monuments are crumbling. Amid this chaos, the Church stands as one of the few stable institutions, and its bishop, the Pope, is increasingly looked to not just for spiritual guidance but for practical leadership. This is the world into which Gregory, born around 540 into a wealthy Roman family, steps onto the stage of history. Gregory's early life was shaped by privilege and piety. His family was deeply Christian, with roots in the Roman aristocracy. His great-great-grandfather was Pope Felix III, and his parents, Gordianus and Sylvia, were devout. Sylvia would later be canonized, a testament to the spiritual environment in which Gregory was raised. As a young man, he received an excellent education, likely studying law and rhetoric, which prepared him for a career in public service. By his early 30s, he was appointed prefect of Rome, essentially the city's chief administrator, overseeing its finances, infrastructure, and defense. It was a demanding role, especially in a city teetering on the edge of collapse. But Gregory's heart was elsewhere. Around 574, he made a dramatic choice. He stepped away from public life, converted his family's estate on the Caelian Hill into a monastery, and dedicated himself to a life of prayer and asceticism. This was no small decision. Monasticism was still a relatively new movement in the West, inspired by figures like St. Benedict, whose rule would later become the standard for Western monasticism. Gregory's embrace of the monastic life reflected his deep spiritual longing, but it also foreshadowed the way he would later blend contemplation with action as Pope. His retreat to the monastery didn't last long. Pope Pelagius II recognized Gregory's talents and pulled him back into the world, sending him as an envoy to Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. For 6 years, from roughly 579 to 585, Gregory served as the papal apocrisiarius, or ambassador, at the imperial court. This was a formative experience. Constantinople was a vibrant, sophisticated city, far removed from Rome's decay. Gregory engaged with emperors, patriarchs, and courtiers, honing his diplomatic skills and gaining a first-hand understanding of the complex relationship between the Western and Eastern churches. He also brought his monastic ideals with him, living simply and maintaining a small community of monks even in the imperial capital. Upon returning to Rome, Gregory resumed his monastic life, but the city's crises soon called him to greater responsibility. In 590, Pope Pelagius II died during a devastating plague. The Roman clergy and people turned to Gregory, electing him pope almost against his will. He famously wrote letters expressing his reluctance, describing the papacy as a burden he felt unworthy to bear. Yet once in office, Gregory embraced his role with extraordinary energy and vision, transforming the papacy into an institution capable of addressing both spiritual and temporal challenges. Let's pause for a moment to consider the context of Gregory's pontificate. The late 6th century was a time of profound transition. The Western Roman Empire was gone, replaced by a patchwork of barbarian kingdoms: Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Franks, and Lombards. The Lombards in particular posed a constant threat to Italy, raiding and seizing territory. The Byzantine Empire, based in Constantinople, still claimed nominal authority over Italy, but its emperors were often too distant or preoccupied to provide real support. Meanwhile, the Church was grappling with internal divisions, including tensions with the Eastern Church over theology and authority. Into this turbulent world, Gregory brought a rare combination of pragmatism, spirituality, and intellectual rigor. One of Gregory's most enduring contributions was his reform of the liturgy. He is often credited with shaping what we now call Gregorian chant, though the details are murky. The term Gregorian chant wasn't used until centuries later, and while Gregory likely didn't compose the music himself, he almost certainly standardized and promoted the use of plainchant in worship. His goal was to create a liturgy that was both reverent and accessible, fostering a sense of unity across the Church. Imagine the haunting beauty of those chants echoing through Rome's basilicas, offering solace to a beleaguered people. This emphasis on liturgical reform wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about strengthening the Church's identity in a fragmented world. Gregory was also a prolific writer, and his works offer a window into his mind and his era. His Pastoral Rule, or Regula Pastoralis, is a masterpiece of spiritual leadership. Written early in his pontificate, it's a guide for bishops, outlining their responsibilities as shepherds of souls. Gregory emphasizes humility, compassion, and adaptability, urging bishops to tailor their approach to the needs of their flock. He compares a bishop to a physician, diagnosing spiritual ailments and prescribing remedies. The Pastoral Rule became a cornerstone of medieval ecclesiastical training, influencing generations of clergy. Its wisdom still resonates for anyone in a position of leadership, religious or secular. Another of Gregory's major works is his Dialogues, a collection of stories about the lives of saints, particularly Italian monks and hermits. The most famous section is Book 2, which is entirely devoted to Saint Benedict of Nursia, the founder of Western monasticism. Through vivid anecdotes, Gregory presents Benedict as a model of holiness, blending miracles with practical wisdom. The Dialogues were wildly popular in the Middle Ages, shaping the way people understood sainthood and monastic life. They also reflect Gregory's deep admiration for the monastic ideal, even as he himself was called to a more active role. But Gregory wasn't just a writer or a liturgist. He was a hands-on leader who tackled the practical challenges of his time. Rome's economy was in shambles, and famine and plague were constant threats. Gregory organized food distributions, using the Church's resources to feed the poor. He negotiated with the Lombards to secure peace, often stepping in where Byzantine authorities failed. In one famous episode, he met with the Lombard king Agilulf and persuaded him to lift a siege of Rome, reportedly through a combination of diplomacy and generous payments from the Church's coffers. These actions highlight Gregory's ability to navigate a world where spiritual and secular authority were increasingly intertwined. His diplomatic efforts extended beyond Italy. Gregory corresponded with rulers across Europe, from the Frankish kings to the Visigothic rulers of Spain. One of his most famous initiatives was the mission to convert the Anglo-Saxons in England. In 596, he sent Augustine, a monk from his own monastery to evangelize the Kentish king Ethelbert. This mission laid the foundation for Christianity in England, and Augustine became the first Archbishop of Canterbury. Gregory's vision for a Christian Europe, united under the spiritual authority of Rome, was ambitious and far-reaching. He saw the papacy not just as a local office, but as a universal one, with responsibility for the spiritual welfare of all Christians. Theologically, Gregory also left a significant mark. He didn't produce systematic treatises like later theologians, but his writings helped shape medieval Christian thought. He popularized the concept of purgatory, describing it as a place where souls undergo purification before entering heaven. This idea, rooted in earlier Christian traditions, became a central feature of medieval piety. Gregory's emphasis on penance, charity, and the intercession of saints also resonated deeply with the faithful, offering hope in a world filled with uncertainty. Despite his achievements, Gregory's pontificate wasn't without challenges. His health was frail, likely due to his ascetic practices and the stress of his office. He suffered from gout and other ailments, and his letters often mention his physical pain. Relations with the Eastern Church were strained, particularly over the title Ecumenical Patriarch, which the Patriarch of Constantinople claimed. Gregory saw this as a challenge to Rome's primacy and defended the authority of the Petrine See, though he did so with characteristic humility, styling himself servant of the servants of God, a title still used by popes today. By the time of his death in 604, Gregory had transformed the papacy into a more dynamic and influential institution. He bridged the gap between the ancient world and the medieval one, laying the groundwork for the Church's role as a unifying force in Europe. His blend of monastic spirituality, administrative skill, and pastoral care set a standard for what a pope could be. No wonder he was canonized soon after his death, and remains one of the four great doctors of the Western Church, alongside Ambrose, Augustine, and Jerome. As we reflect on Gregory the Great, we see a man who embodied the tension between contemplation and action, between the cloister and the world. He longed for the quiet of the monastery, but answered the call to lead in a time of crisis. His legacy reminds us that leadership, at its best, is about service, about responding to the needs of others with humility and courage. Gregory's story is a testament to the enduring power of faith and vision in the face of adversity. That's all for today's episode of History of the Popes. Join us next time as we continue to explore the lives and legacies of the men who have shaped the papacy and the Church. If you enjoyed this study of the papacy, check out our other episodes, and we'll see you next time on History of the Popes. Until then, keep exploring the past to understand the present.